Hi, old bull here. They told you loneliness was a symptom of weakness, a sign that something was wrong with you. That if you were a real man, you'd have people around you. You'd have a woman, a family, a circle of friends, a place where you belong. But here's the uncomfortable truth most won't say out loud. Loneliness isn't the problem, it's the wake-up call. Because sometimes being alone is exactly what you need to remember who the hell you are. Before the noise, before the heartbreak, before the burnout. This world teaches you to chase connection at any cost, but it doesn't teach you how to be the kind of man you'd actually want to sit around a fire with. So we run from silence, from stillness, from ourselves. But what if I told you that the first step to real strength isn't getting a partner or finding new friends, but learning how to enjoy your own company with a strong back, a quiet mind, and a fire burning in your chest? What if solitude was your training ground, ... not your prison? If you've ever felt tired of chasing, burned by bad relationships, or stuck wondering if you're broken for feeling so damn alone, this one's for you. You know, for a long time, I thought being alone and being lonely were the same thing. But they ain't. I've spent weeks alone in the wilderness, with nothing but my truck, a campfire, and the sound of the wind brushing through pine needles like an old hymn. Not once did I feel lonely out there. But I've also sat at a dinner, table full of people, laughter echoing, forks clinking, and felt like I was on an island that no one could reach. See, real loneliness starts not on the outside, but on the inside. It starts when you're not at peace with the man staring back at you in the mirror. When you're restless in your own skin, solitude becomes a prison. You pace around your life like a caged animal, looking for someone to unlock the door you don't realize you're holding the key to. A real man, a strong man, he doesn't fear silence. He knows that solitude isn't absence, it's presence. It's a firewood-fed moment of reflection, where the only voice left to talk to is your own, and the echoes you hear reveal what's really going on in the fight inside. I've seen cowboys tough as leather get undone by that quiet. Men who could break horses in brave blizzards crumble when the world got still. You can't outrun your own mind. You can fill your day with chores, your truck with gear, your schedule with noise, but when the sun dips behind the mountain and the pipe smoke rises slow, you're left with yourself. And if you don't like your own company, that's the root of your loneliness. That's the scar you keep pressing on, hoping it'll heal without ever tending to it. A stoic man doesn't just accept silence, he invites it. He walks the forest. Trail not just to escape, but to meet the parts of himself he's been avoiding. And here's the truth, brother. The quiet isn't your enemy. It's your teacher. It's the place where identity is forged, not in crowds or in applause, but in stillness. That's where manhood gets its backbone. When you stop running, stop distracting, and finally sit down in the saddle of your own soul. The journey from being broken to being whole starts there, in the silence, in the stillness, in the campfire, crackling at dusk with no one around but you. Not when you find a woman or a crowd or a stage to stand on, but when you become the kind of man who doesn't fear the dark corners of his own heart. And once that process begins, ... there's a quiet kind of strength that comes from learning to sit with yourself. And I'm not talking about just existing in the same space. I'm talking about truly being there, like a brother who won't leave. When the storms roll in, most men out there are chasing connection, chasing purpose, chasing love. But they've skipped the part where they become someone worth being around. You ever think about that? You keep wanting someone to share your life with, but if you don't want to be around yourself, why would anyone else? I've found that the men who stand tall through the winds of life aren't always the loud ones or the ones with the biggest boots. They're the ones who've spent time tending their own soul, clearing the clutter, facing the fear, forgiving the man in the mirror. Becoming your own companion means speaking truth to yourself without tearing yourself apart. It means taking responsibility without taking on shame. You learn to be firm without being cruel. A real man knows the difference between discipline and destruction, especially when it comes to himself. Being a good companion to yourself starts with little things. You wake up, and instead of scrolling or numbing out, you open a book worth reading. Maybe Marcus Aurelius, maybe C.S. Lewis. You keep a journal, not to whine, but to reflect, to sort through the quiet pain, the doubt, the fight inside. Cook your own meals with care. You keep your boots clean, your knife sharp. You take yourself fishing. You learn to laugh with yourself, not at yourself. You start honoring your time like it matters, because it does. Some of you think healing will come when someone else shows up to do it for you. But the truth is, no one's riding in to fix the barn you've let fall apart. You've got to patch those boards yourself. You've got to stack the firewood, sweep out the dust, make it livable again, so when someone does come along, they find a place worth staying. Not perfect, just steady, just real. That's what manhood is. It's not about being invincible. It's about being dependable. When you stop waiting for someone to save you and start becoming the man who'd never leave you behind, something shifts. That's where healing begins. Not out there in the crowd, but in the saddle of your own solitude, in the firelight of your own discipline, in the way you show up for yourself, day after day, even when no one's watching. Especially then. I've sat by many campfires with good men carrying quiet pain, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's that the heaviest burden a man can carry ain't his past or his failures. It's the lies he keeps telling himself. The little ones, the sneaky ones. Like, I'm fine when you're falling apart. Or, it's not my fault when deep down, you know it is. We all do it. We all hide behind the smoke instead of facing the flames. But the truth, uncomfortable as it may be, is the only thing that'll ever set a man free. See, lying to yourself is like putting rotten wood in your foundation. Maybe no one notices at first. Maybe even you don't. But when the pressure hits, when life starts to shake, your walls, it all comes crashing down. You can fake a lot in this world, but not to the man you see when you're shaving in the morning. That guy knows when you've been lazy. He knows when you've avoided the hard talks. He knows when you're being a coward and calling it caution. And here's the hard part. You can't grow in ground you haven't cleared. If you're still watering weeds with your denial, don't expect fruit. Growth doesn't come from pretending to be someone else, or from dressing up your wounds like war medals. It comes from truth, brutal, sobering, cleansing truth. You've got to say it out loud sometimes. I'm scared. I'm angry. I'm lost. And then follow it with, but I'm not staying here. That's what strength of character looks like. That's quiet strength. That's manhood. I remember a time when I blamed the world for everything. My failures, my regrets, my being stuck. I thought maybe if I barked loud enough at the world, I wouldn't have to listen to my own conscience. But you can't outrun the echo of your own truth. It follows you like your shadow. And when I finally looked it in the eye, when I stopped making excuses and started making changes, I found something stronger than comfort. I found clarity. And that was the day I truly started becoming a man. If you want to build a life that means something, a legacy, a purpose, a name worth passing down, you've got to start with honesty. Not just with others, but with yourself. Strip it all back. Drop the mask. Own your failures. Own your fear. And from there, you'll find something solid enough to build on. Because truth, once you stop fighting it, becomes your greatest ally. And that's the beginning of real transformation. There's a strange kind of courage in admitting you messed up. Not the performative kind, where a man shrugs and laughs like it didn't cost him anything, but the quiet kind. The kind that looks a mistake square in the eye and says, yeah, I did that. And it hurt someone, maybe even myself. A real man doesn't need to pretend he's flawless. In fact, it's the opposite. Owning your flaws is where manhood begins. That's where humility, responsibility, and real healing start to take root. But here's the kicker. Staring down your failures without learning how to forgive yourself is just another trap. I've seen men stuck for years, not because they couldn't admit what they did, but because they couldn't stop punishing themselves for it. They carried their regrets around like firewood on their backs, letting the weight define them. That's not discipline. That's self-destruction in slow motion. You don't get strong by dragging your guilt through every season. You get strong by learning how to lay it down and build something better with the lessons it taught you. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending the damage didn't happen. It means you don't let that damage become your identity. You learn. You adapt. You rise again. One of the most masculine things a man can do is stand in the ashes of something he burned down, look up at the sky, and say, I'll do better next time. And then actually do it. That takes discipline. That takes reflection. That takes a kind of inner fire that no one sees, but that changes everything. You're going to fail, brother. That's not a prophecy. That's a promise. You're going to say the wrong thing, miss the target, break a heart, disappoint someone you love. The test isn't whether or not you fail, it's how you respond. After, do you bury it and pretend it didn't happen? Do you wallow in shame and let it eat you alive? Or do you face it, make it right if you can, and move forward with a little more wisdom in your saddlebag? We talk a lot about strength around here, but if your strength doesn't include grace for yourself and others, it's just armor without purpose. If you're going to carry the weight of your past, at least carry it in a way that makes you kinder, wiser, and more dependable. Don't. Become the kind of man who never forgives himself. Become the kind of man who learns, repents, grows, and keeps walking forward, scars and all. Because the road ahead needs the version of you that's forgiven, not the one that's still bleeding from yesterday. There's a kind of loneliness that sneaks up on a man, not when he's alone, but when he's surrounded by people who don't really see him. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Being alone isn't the worst thing that can happen to you. Being with the wrong person or in the wrong crowd, that'll rot you from the inside out. A man who's desperate for company will accept any voice in the room, even the ones that poison his spirit slowly. And before he knows it, he's a stranger to himself. I've seen too many good men settle for hollow friendships or toxic relationships just to fill the silence. They think companionship, any companionship, is better than solitude. But they forget one thing. Peace of mind is a form of strength. You don't need noise around you to feel alive. You don't need someone else's shadow hanging over you. Fire just so you don't feel the night breeze. A quiet campfire is better than a crowded table full of empty souls. Now, emotional self-sufficiency doesn't mean you never need anyone. It means you're not begging for validation. It means your heart has roots, deep ones, so when the storms come, you don't get ripped out by the wind of someone else's opinion. You've got your boots on solid ground, and you know how to sit with your own silence without feeling like something's missing. That kind of man is dangerous in the best possible way. He can't be manipulated, bought, or broken just because he doesn't want to be alone. If you want to build that kind of inner resilience, start with the little things. Learn to enjoy your own company. Take yourself fishing. Read a book under a pine tree. Sit by a fire and let your thoughts breathe. Journal. Pray. Chop wood without a podcast blasting in your ear. Give yourself permission to be your own friend, your own protector, your own anchor. Because if you're not comfortable with yourself, you'll always be at the mercy of someone else's chaos dot. And when you finally become a man who doesn't need to be rescued from his own solitude, you stop reaching for the wrong hands. You stop letting loneliness trick you into trading your peace for cheap connection. You stop looking for someone to complete you and start looking for people who complement your strength, not people who drain it. Because there's nothing lonelier than being with someone who makes you feel more alone than you ever did by yourself. A man doesn't just get stuck overnight. It happens slow, like rust on an old truck that used to run strong. You tell yourself, you'll fix things tomorrow. You'll get back in shape next month. You'll confront that fear when the time feels right. But let me tell you something from the front porch of a long life. Tomorrow has no loyalty to the man who won't move today. What kills most men's spirit isn't failure. It's the slow death of never trying. I've seen cowboys with broken ribs saddle up again because the herd needed pushing. I've seen tired fathers hold the line when their whole world was falling apart. And I've seen young men lose years because they waited too long to act, waiting for the perfect plan, the perfect mood, the perfect moment. You want movement? Then move. Put your boots on and do something, anything, that breaks the silence inside your soul. Action, real, grounded, imperfect action, is the only cure for a stagnant spirit. Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it looks like showing up to work when you don't feel like it. Sometimes it's making that phone call, sending that apology, or applying for that job, even though fear's got its hand around your throat. And here's the truth. The more you act in spite of fear, the more it shrinks. But the more you wait for the fear to go away before you act, the more it grows like weeds around your ankles. You'll wake up one day bound in your own excuses, wondering when you stopped moving. If you're feeling stuck, don't make a list of dreams, make a list of tasks. Chop wood, write the email, clean the truck, go on that hike, register for that class. Life isn't waiting for you to feel ready. It's just asking if you're willing to go. And don't think you need to see the whole path before you take the first step. The trail clears with every footprint. That's how men with scars become men with stories they moved, even when they were afraid. And when you do move, when you act despite the ache, something changes in your bones. You remember what it feels like to carry your own weight. You remember. You've still got strength left in you. That quiet fire that was smoldering under the ashes starts to breathe again. And you realize the man you're becoming is worth the struggle it took to get here. And the struggle it'll take to keep going. There was a time I thought the world had to understand me in order for me to matter. That if people didn't clap for the way I walked, talked, lived, or thought, maybe I was walking the wrong road. Took me a few decades and more than one cold night under the stars to figure out something simple but powerful. The world's noise ain't the compass for a real man. Just because they're loud doesn't mean they're right. And just because you're quiet doesn't mean you're lost. You see, this world will hand you a map the moment you're born. It'll tell you what success looks like, what happiness should feel like, how to dress, how to speak, what to believe. But that map's written by folks who don't even know your terrain. It don't take into account your scars, your battles, your values. A strong man, a stoic man, learns to draw his own map based on truth, not trends. And that kind of direction only comes from solitude, reflection, and standing still long enough to hear your own thoughts through the chaos. The culture's always shifting. What's admired today will be mocked tomorrow. 1 year, being a provider is noble. The next, it's toxic. They'll celebrate rebellion 1 minute and demand obedience the next. If you keep steering your life based on applause, you'll end up like a leaf in the wind. Impressive movement. No destination. But a man with purpose doesn't chase the crowd, he holds the line. He walks through the wilderness with his eyes fixed not on praise, but on principle. You've got to anchor your worth in something deeper than likes, followers, or public approval. That means knowing you're valuable, even when you're alone. Even when no one notices your effort. Even when your discipline doesn't come with a pat on the back. True masculinity isn't proven in a spotlight. It's forged in silence. In doing the right thing when no one's watching. In staying respectful when others mock you. In being a protector and provider, even when the world calls it outdated dot. So the next time you feel out of place or unappreciated, remember this. The mountain air doesn't need to ask permission to be crisp. The river doesn't check with the world before carving through stone. You don't need the world's validation to walk in strength. The man who knows who he is, who's rooted in identity, discipline, and quiet strength, can keep walking, even through the storm. Because he doesn't need their compass. He carries his own. There's a truth I wish every man could learn early, before life hands him the bill for years wasted pointing fingers. The only soul you can truly change is your own. Not your wife, not your boss, not the world, not even your own son. Just you. That realization is both a heavy burden and a deep freedom. Because once you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you can finally get to work on the only battlefield that matters, yourself. I spent too long trying to fix others, thinking if they just saw it my way, if they just did what made sense, to me, life would be smoother. But people aren't horses you can break with the right saddle and steady hands. They've got their own storms, their own wilderness inside. The moment I turned that effort inward, things began to change. My anger didn't control the room anymore. My silence stopped being bitterness and started being strength. That was the real beginning of becoming a good man, not because I fixed others, but because I finally faced my own reflection dot. It's tempting to think our problems are caused by someone else's choices, that we're tired because of others, that we're stuck because of them. But the truth is, Most of us are held back by our own fears, pride, or lack of discipline. Changing yourself doesn't mean becoming someone else. It means stripping away what never belonged. Maybe that's the fear of being alone. Maybe that's the need for approval. Maybe that's just the habit of numbing your purpose with cheap distractions. But the axe you need to cut through all that, it's always been in your hands. Real strength of character comes when you stop waiting for others to act right and start becoming the man you respect in the mirror. You don't need permission to start over. You don't need applause to choose better. You don't need a crowd to rebuild yourself. What you need is a moment of silence, a fire that won't go out, and the decision to stop blaming and start owning. The warrior doesn't wait for the world to be fair. He becomes stronger than the unfairness dot. So when life feels out of control and everything outside you feels loud and broken, don't waste your breath cursing the storm. Light a fire inside. Change your habits. Master your emotions. Be the kind of man that your younger self would admire and your older self will thank. That's the one power the world can never take from you. And that's how the fight inside finally turns into peace dot. It's easy to get angry these days. Just open your phone, look out your window, or walk through town. You'll see chaos dressed as progress, weakness praised as virtue and strength, mocked as toxic. But hear me, don't let that chaos turn you bitter. The world might be falling apart, but you don't have to. Being a strong man isn't about matching the world's noise with more noise. It's about carrying your weight with quiet strength, even when the ground beneath you shakes. Hatred is a lazy reaction. It feels powerful, like fire in your chest. But it doesn't build, it only burns. A real man, a good man, knows when to fight and when to stand still. He knows when to draw his rifle and when to walk away with his boots dusty, but his dignity intact. You can't fix a broken world by becoming more broken than it. And you sure won't find peace by becoming like the ones who lost theirs. They've seen men who let the world's injustice sour their soul. They start out wounded and end up cruel. But we don't need more wounded warriors turning into tyrants. We need men who've been through hell and still choose mercy. That's true manhood. That's the kind of legacy a father leaves. You don't have to agree with everything around you, but don't let it make you someone you're not proud of. Keep your self-respect even when the world shows none. You want to lead? Start by leading yourself. Don't scream at the darkness like a campfire. Don't fight every fool online build something in the real world. Teach your son to fish. Help your neighbor split firewood. Call your mother. Live like a man who still believes in purpose, identity, and meaning, even when the world has forgotten what those words mean. That quiet fire you carry might just be the only warmth someone else feels that day. You're going to be tested. Doubt. There will be days when the temptation to lash out will feel like a righteous fire. But the strongest warriors know that real power isn't in the punch, it's in the patience. And just beyond that patience, there's a kind of freedom. The angry man will never know. Because when the world gets loud, the stoic man stands firm, and in doing so, becomes the one unshaken thing left in the storm. Strength isn't built in the gym. It's built in the quiet corners of a man's mind, when nobody's watching, and there's nothing to prove. That's where manhood begins. Not in loud speeches or heavy fists, but in silent choices. Doing what's right when it's easier not to. Standing firm when the easy road begs you to fold. Being a real man means knowing who you are and not selling that soul for applause. approval, or a temporary escape from your fight inside. I've met cowboys who could rope a steer, blindfolded but crumbled under pressure when faced with their own demons. I've seen polished men in fine trucks who couldn't look their wife in the eye without lying. And I've seen quiet men with worn boots, calloused hands, and scars on their hearts who walked with a stillness that came from knowing they didn't have to pretend. That's integrity. That's the kind of strength that doesn't show off, but never backs down. To be a good man, a strong man, is to be aligned from the inside out. No contradictions between what you say and what you do. No pretending to be a protector while running from responsibility. A man with balance is like a saddle well fitted to the horse, steady, dependable, built to ride long trails without breaking. And if you've ever ridden a horse with a crooked saddle, you know just how painful a misaligned life can be. Balance doesn't mean peace all the time. It means knowing where your center is when life throws you off kilter. It means recognizing when anger's creeping in, when doubt is whispering lies and saying, "Not today." I've got firewood to chop, people to protect, and a legacy to leave behind. It means trusting your own reflection, even when the world tries to shame you for being a man, a father, a provider, a quiet warrior who doesn't need to shout. To be heard. So if you're searching for strength, don't start by lifting weights. Start by lifting the truth. Be honest with yourself. Own your flaws. Honor your word. Keep promises, especially the ones you make to yourself. That's the foundation of a strong man. And once you're built solid on the inside, there's no storm outside that can tear you down. Because when you've got integrity in your bones and calm in your chest, even the wilderness starts to feel like home. Now tell me, after all this reflection, what's stopping you from starting today? If you made it this far, it's because something in you is tired of walking around with that quiet pain. You're not broken, you're being forged. But even the strongest blade needs a reason to be. Sharpened. So I ask you, what are you going to do with what you've learned? Are you going to sit with it and let it rust? Or stand up and start walking, even if it's just one slow, steady step at a time? The loneliness you're feeling isn't your enemy. It's your companion until you're ready to become your own. So be honest. What weeds in your life need clearing? What parts of you have you neglected or numbed? And if you've made peace with yourself today, even just a little, what could that grow into if you keep tending it? Let me know in the comments. Say it out loud. Claim it. You're still here, and that's no small thing. And if this message struck a chord with you, do yourself a favor. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and keep showing up. We're building something real out here. You don't have to walk it alone anymore.